Welcome back to 13 News. Tonight, a federal attorney is asking the state of Indiana to hold off on executing a death row inmate.
Joseph Corcoran is convicted of murdering 4 people back in 1997. The appeal cites that his mental illness is a reason for keeping him from being put to death.
One thing that I found very striking about Mr. Corcoran's execution is the fact that the prosecutor who initially sought his death sentence has now said he would not make the same decision today.
A man's fate sealed by a single decision, a courtroom echoing with cries for justice, and a clock ticking down to a grim moment 15 years in the making. On December 18th, 2024, the state of Indiana broke its silence on capital punishment, executing Joseph Edward Corcoran. But was this justice served or justice delayed? Let's dive in. Alright y'all, buckle up because this story, it's heavy. Joseph Edward Corcoran's case isn't just about one man, it's about a system that's been debated for decades. On the surface, Corcoran's crimes were horrific. Convicted of brutally murdering 4 people in 1997, he was sentenced to death in Indiana, a state that hadn't carried out an execution since 2009. But the road to his execution was anything but straightforward. Corcoran's story reflects a deep divide in public sentiment about the death penalty. Supporters argue that such severe crimes deserve the harshest punishment, while critics point to the delays, appeals, and uncertainty surrounding such cases. This execution wasn't just about him, it became a symbol of Indiana's grappling with the morality and practicality of capital punishment. So, who was Joseph Edward Corcoran, and how did we end up here? Let's peel back the layers and examine the timeline, controversies, and human toll of this complex case. Picture this.
Was convicted of the 1997 murders of his brother, sister's fiance, and 2 others.
It's July 1997 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Corcoran, a 22-year-old man, calls 911 to report a gruesome scene. His brother, his sister's fiance, and 2 family friends all shot dead in his home. Corcoran confessed to pulling the trigger, claiming they were conspiring against him. Shocking, right? But it gets darker. Investigators quickly unraveled a troubling backstory.
His attorneys claim he is seriously mentally ill.
Corcoran had a history of mental illness, including paranoia and delusions. Family members had noticed erratic behavior for years, but nothing had suggested it would escalate to such violence. Prosecutors argued that the crime was calculated and merciless, while the defense claimed it was the tragic result of an untreated mental health condition. At trial, the evidence painted a chilling picture. Ballistic reports, witness testimonies, and Corcoran's own statements left little doubt about his guilt. Still, the defense's plea for leniency highlighted the broader issue. Was this a case of pure evil or a failure of the system to intervene before tragedy struck? Ultimately, the jury decided on the death penalty, but questions lingered. Now here's where things get messy. Corcoran's case wasn't an open and shut situation. Appeals, petitions, and controversies over mental health assessments delayed his execution for over a decade. During this time, Indiana's death penalty practices were under intense scrutiny, with activists calling for its abolition and legal experts pointing out systemic flaws. By 2009, Indiana unofficially paused executions. The state's dwindling death row population and shifting public opinion raised serious questions about the death penalty's future. Corcoran's case became emblematic of these challenges, as each legal hurdle highlighted the inefficiencies of the system. Experts pointed out that the delays weren't just procedural, they reflected deeper societal conflicts about morality, fairness, and justice. For Corcoran, these delays meant years of uncertainty. Legal teams debated his mental competence, arguing over whether he fully understood his punishment. Meanwhile, the families of his victims were left in limbo, waiting for closure that seemed perpetually out of reach. The state's decision to resume executions in 2024 was sudden, reigniting debates that had simmered for over a decade. The million-dollar question. Does the death penalty truly deliver justice, or is it just state-sanctioned revenge? In Corcoran's case, emotions ran high. The families of his victims expressed relief that justice was finally served. For them, his execution was closure after 27 years of grief. But opponents of the death penalty argue that it's outdated, discriminatory, and, get this, not even effective as a deterrent. Studies show that states with the death penalty don't have lower crime rates. Yikes. Moreover, the financial cost of pursuing a death penalty case often far exceeds the cost of life imprisonment without parole. And then there's the moral dilemma.
We would ask the governor to grant clemency to Joe Corcoran. Has schizophrenia, he's seriously mentally ill.
Corcoran had documented mental health issues. Does executing someone with such a history cross ethical lines? It's a question that divided not just Indiana, but the entire nation. Critics point out that many developed countries have abolished the death penalty, viewing it as an archaic and inhumane practice. So why does the US persist? Another layer to this debate is the racial and socioeconomic bias often seen in capital punishment cases. Studies reveal that defendants from marginalized backgrounds are more likely to receive the death penalty. Corcoran's case, while not directly tied to these biases, still raises broader questions about fairness and equity in the justice system. So, fast forward to December 18th, 2024. Corcoran's final moments were shrouded in solemnity and controversy. The execution execution took place at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City. Media outlets reported a heavily guarded facility, silent protests outside, and wait for it, a last-minute appeal rejected by the Supreme Court. Witnesses said Corcoran appeared calm. His final words, he reportedly expressed remorse for his actions but maintained his paranoia about conspiracies against him, a chilling reminder of the mental struggles that defined his life. For the prison staff and witnesses, it was a somber and emotionally charged event. Some described the atmosphere as eerily quiet, with every movement weighed down by the gravity of the situation. Protesters outside the facility added another layer of complexity.
It was the first of several prayers by clergy members and opponents of the death penalty that were motivated by the execution of Joseph Corcoran for shooting and killing 4 people inside his home in Fort Wayne in 1997.
Advocates against the death penalty held vigils, chanting slogans and holding signs that read, "Justice, not vengeance, and end the death penalty now." Their presence underscored the polarizing nature of the event, with opinions sharply divided even in the final hours. For the legal system, this marked the end of a protracted case that had spanned decades. But for society, it raised enduring questions about whether justice was truly served or if the execution symbolized the flaws of an outdated system. Let's talk about the people most affected, the victims' families. For years, they endured the agony of a justice system that moved at a snail's pace. After the execution, some family members said they finally felt peace, while others admitted the loss still felt unbearable. But here's the twist. Not all of them supported the death penalty. One relative of a victim told reporters they would have preferred life imprisonment, saying, "Killing him doesn't bring back my loved ones." Heartbreaking, right? This division within the families mirrors the larger societal debate where even those directly impacted by crime are not unanimous in their views. For some, the decades-long delay added to their pain. They described feeling re-victimized by a system that seemed unable to deliver timely justice. Others expressed gratitude for finally having a sense of closure, even if it didn't heal all wounds. These mixed emotions highlight the profound and lasting impact of violent crime, which no sentence, death or otherwise, can fully erase. Now let's zoom out. Indiana's execution of Corcoran marks a significant moment, but what does it say about the bigger picture? Across the US, the death penalty is on shaky ground. States like Virginia and Colorado have abolished it altogether, while others like California have moratoriums in place. As of 2024, fewer than half of U.S. states actively practice capital punishment. Public opinion is shifting too. Polls show that a growing number of Americans favor life imprisonment over the death penalty. So why is Indiana holding on? Some experts believe it's about politics. Death penalty cases often serve as symbols of law and order, especially in states with conservative leadership. But with costs running into millions per case and no clear evidence of deterrence, is it really worth it? Advocates for abolition argue that the resources spent on capital cases could be better invested in crime prevention and rehabilitation programs. Globally, the U.S. stands out as one of the few developed nations that still practices capital punishment. This puts it in the company of countries with less robust justice systems, raising questions about America's commitment to human rights and progressive values. Indiana's decision to resume executions highlights the tension between state-level practices and broader national and international trends. So what's the takeaway here? Joseph Edward Corcoran's execution is a moment of reckoning for Indiana and the nation. It forces us to confront the flaws in our justice system, the morality of capital punishment, and the emotional toll it takes on everyone involved. And y'all, here's the real kicker. With public opinion shifting and states moving away from executions, Corcoran's case might just be one of the last in Indiana. But until the U.S. fully abolishes the death penalty, cases like this will continue to spark heated debates. Will America follow the global trend of abolishing capital punishment, or will it cling to this controversial practice for decades to come? What's your take? Is the death penalty a necessary form of justice, or is it time for America to move on? Let me know in the comments below. Alright fam, that's it for today's deep dive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that make you think. Until next time, stay curious and stay kind. Bye.